Now that we have talked about how to identify angle relationships, we are going to work through how to solve after we've created equations using those relationships. So remember, I have complementary angles, supplementary angles, vertical angles, and linear pairs. Complementary angles are equal to 90 degrees. So two angles that sum to 90 degrees. Supplementary and linear pairs are two angles that sum to 180 degrees. And then vertical angles are equal because they are congruent. So using this information, we're then going to go ahead and set up our equations. Remember, you have this in your foldable, so you can reference it when you need it. So before we can begin, we need to figure out what exactly it is that we're solving for. So I'm going to focus first on just looking at what I have highlighted as my blue angles, because I see that that makes a 90-degree angle. So if I have a 90-degree angle, those are angles that are complementary. And complementary angles mean A plus B equals 90. So if I'm going to solve for this, I'm going to say 48 plus B equals 90, and then I'm going to solve my equation. So I'll subtract 48 on both sides, and then I will get that B is equal to 42 degrees. Let's also look along this pink line. This is a straight angle. So whenever I see a straight angle, that means that I either have a linear pair or I have supplementary angles. In this case, they share a side. They sum to 180, they share a side. So this means that I'm dealing with a linear pair. So my equation is A plus B equals 180. So I'm going to take my A plus 48 degrees equals 180, and then I will solve. So I'm going to subtract 48 on both sides. And when I do, I get that A is equal to 132 degrees. And that's how I find the angles, or the angle measures, for my linear pair and my complementary angles. Take a look at this one. This one, I have two angle measures as well. So I start by noticing that I have a straight angle. Once again, anytime you see a straight angle, we're looking at things that are supplementary. These two share a side, so that means that I'm dealing with a linear pair. And when I have a linear pair, that means that I have A plus B equals 180. So I'm going to say my angle A plus the 138-degree angle must be set equal to 180. I can then go ahead and solve this equation. So I'll subtract 138 on both sides. So I get A is equal to 42 degrees. That means this here is 42. When I'm looking at this, I notice that I have an X. Whenever I see an X, that tells me that if they share that common point, that I might be able to have vertical angles. And here, in fact, I do. So A and B are congruent. So since they're congruent, B is also equal to 42 degrees. This one is telling me to use complementary angles to solve. So if I'm going to use complementary angles, I know that that means I'm using what is part of my 90 degrees. So I'm going to use this 42, and then I'm going to use my 3x. I do not need this 138 degrees in order to solve this problem. Not if it's telling me to use complementary angles. If it told me to use supplementary angles, then I could have used that. So I'm going to say I have 42 plus 3x, and that's going to equal 90. And I know that because whenever I have complementary angles, it's a plus b equals 90. I can go ahead and solve. So I'm going to subtract 42. It's going to give me 3x equals 48. And when I divide by 3, x equals 16. So now we're going to take the same problem and we're going to use supplementary angles to solve. When I have supplementary angles, a plus b equals 180. So I'm looking for where they share a side, they have there on that straight angle, and then together those two angles are going to sum to 180 degrees. So I'm going to take my 3x, going to add 138, and that's going to equal 180 because I'm solving for this using supplementary angles. So then I can go ahead and subtract 138 on both sides. So I'm left with 3x equals 42. When I divide by 3, I get that x equals 14. For this problem, I will use vertical angles to solve. Remember, vertical angles come about where I could fold my x on top of itself and the two angles would be congruent. So this one means that I need these two. And when I have vertical angles, they are congruent. So A equals B. So then I'm going to take my two angles and I'm going to set them equal. And then I'm going to go ahead and solve. So I'm going to subtract 3 first. So then I get 120 equals 4x. And when I divide both sides by 4, I then get that x equals 30. Now I'm going to use my linear pairs in order to solve. So linear pairs have to be on a straight line and they have to share a side. So that means that I'm going to use 4x plus 3 and 57. And linear pairs are supplementary. So a plus b equals 180. So when I set up this equation, I'm going to have 57 plus 4x plus 3 is equal to 180. Then I need to combine like terms. Remember, we're combining things that have the same variable and the same exponent, and these have no variables, so that's why we can combine them. So then that's going to give me 60 plus 4x equals 180. I can go ahead and subtract 60 on both sides. So then I get 4x equals 120. And when I divide by 4, x equals 30. And that should be the case. I should find that because this is the same problem as the last one, I'm just using a different part of the problem to solve for x, that I should still get that same answer.